Chapter 20 Better Rhythm. Summary. Their new situation doesn't take long for them to get used to. And hey, what's that? No new trauma? Maybe their time on this planet can be better than bearable. For the next week and a half, the group starts to settle into their life. Every day, they would wake up at dawn with the sun, climbing out of their crashed escape pod after untangling their intertwined limbs from their cuddle puddle. They found it was the only way they could sleep now, a reassurance that they were all together, that no one would take any member of their new group away, that they themselves would not wake up separated and alone in some small metal cage. After Bakugo would cook some breakfast, occasionally helped by Dinky or Mina, using their foraged food along with some spices from Alan's food stall, the Terrans would set off bright and early to town to work. Everyone was able to get an early shift to leave their evenings free, but that meant that by the time they arrived, most of the town was only just waking up for breakfast. They would work long, hard days, only having the weekends off for the most part. The days being shorter than normal Earth days, the Terrans were easily able to forgo lunch and work a full day shift with few breaks, helping their productivity and earnings towards their soon-to-be ship. The Osiers, on the other hand, would either spend the day tending to the crash site home or working babysitting jobs when they had them, which was surprisingly often. Despite being on the younger side, the siblings quickly found themselves booked up with new jobs nearly every day. But despite their work, the two kids had been able to make friends their age in town. All the Terrans were happy about them being able to be real kids again. Well, back home, they had been training to be heroes and had already been in multiple life or death situations, even a kidnapping. Those two were just civilians. They were wholeheartedly and totally unprepared for this kind of thing. They deserved to be able to go back to their normal lives after this was all said and done. While the teens had a long road still left ahead of them, one paved in uncertainty and revenge. The two kids they had grown to care so much about didn't have to share the same fate. This would be but a short few chapters in their lives, but ones that they were not done writing yet. After the workday, if everyone was in town, they would converge at Alan's food stall for an early dinner, enjoying any time they were able to spend in the homely, shaded alley. Ayalin was almost like the group's aunt, asking about their days, taking care of them, teasing them, insisting on giving them a discount if charging them at all for food. It had brought with it a much-needed feeling of comfort and familiarity that the kids had been missing. If not everyone was in town that day, the ones who were would make their way back to their makeshift home, preparing dinner for the group and then continuing preparations to leave the planet, only stopping when darkness came. Preparing could include anything, from plotting the most viable route back to each of their planets, to finding out how to source ship parts, to working on building strength and stamina back up. They were also quickly getting an even greater understanding of BASIC, now that they were using it in their everyday work. And finally, they would all crash in a pile from a hard day's work. They were getting closer and closer to their 10% down payment goal every day. It helped that every one of the Terrans had managed to get an above-average paying job thanks to either their quirk or their skills, helped along by humans' unique biology. Well, everyone but Deku had managed to. It's not for lack of effort or hours put in, however. It was just the nature of the job. If Izuku was being honest with himself, he was basically a pity hire. While it was true that the dump was in desperate need of tidying up, Mr. Zyuntuk hadn't even had a job listing out, so he was obviously in no rush. But just because the job didn't have as much pay or quite as many hours as the others, didn't mean that he wasn't trying his hardest. It was certainly difficult at first with his weak, practically frail body. He'd gotten worn out after only half an hour's work. But Izuku was steadily gaining back strength and stamina. Now that everyone was able to eat enough food, including Izuku, he was able to start gaining back muscle mass. So little by little, he was able to work a minute or two longer before a break, lift a little more, gain even a fraction back of what he had before. Sometimes, at the end of a hard day, Izuku could feel One for All purring in his core. Still locked away for now, but not gone. Ever present as he went about his day, even if it wasn't the same as before. Though eventually, it would be back. Izuku would make sure of it. After 1.5 weeks of all of them working had at last passed, they were finally able to afford the down payment. They had all taken a day off from work to be there for this monumental step towards getting home. So bright and early, they arrived at the dump. With Izuku's help, they easily wound their way through the twisted paths to find themselves standing in front of their soon-to-be ship. It was no less beat up than the last time they'd seen it, but that was what they were here for. The group soon heard the soft footfalls of Mr. Xiantuk approaching from behind. He smiled kindly towards the group as he came to a stop in front of them. "Guess today's finally the day, ain't it? Getting this old girl out of here at last." Mei had a manic gleam in her eye at the prospect. She had already been going feral at her new job with all the alien tech and new things to explore. Izuku knew she had just been waiting for the opportunity to try things out on her own, to really explore the inner workings of these novel technologies. He had total confidence that Mei could get the ship back up and running in time, with how she had already taken to the foreign tech. Though, one thing that gave Izuku pause was when she asked him to essentially be her assistant. It wasn't the assistant part that made him anxious. It was the fact that he knew nothing about technology. When he had brought that up, she had just cackled a little and said he would learn in time. Izuku knew he was really the only option for it because of the fewer hours he worked with his job. Meg worked a lot, and if he could be doing even small things to help the ship's repairs move along while the others worked, it would be really impactful. But Izuku, for one, did not trust himself to work on something that would need to protect them from the crushing expanse of space while rocketing them through the abyss without exploding. So, yeah. Still, that didn't change the fact that he was the only option. He would just need to learn how to do it properly. Mei would be a great teacher, if not slightly unhinged. So all he could do was give it his all, learn everything he can so they can get home even faster. Izuku was pulled out of his thoughts after Ochako transferred Mr. Xiantuk all the credits he needed, due to the fact he could see Mei practically vibrating on the spot. As soon as the transaction was done, the pink-haired girl raced forward and hugged the ship. Then, with a serious voice, she said, "You shall be the greatest baby of all time," while staring very intently at its dirty metal exterior. Even though Mr. Xiantuk couldn't understand a lick of what Mei had said, he still gave a chuckle at her sudden intensity. "You kids need any help transporting the old girl? Where do you fellows live, by the way? Haven't heard any new arrivals in the area." Izuku felt a little panic welling up in the group at the man's words. It's not that they didn't trust him with where they lived. No, Izuku had grown to be quite fond of the man over the last little while. It was more the underlying threat the traffickers posed. No one in town had yet to recognize the humans as Terran Death Worlders, but that didn't mean no one would. And someone who did could have less than kind intentions. But right now, the crash site was their safe space. No one but them knew where it was, which meant that no one could get to them there, not even the traffickers. But the more people who knew about it, the greater the chance the information could reach the wrong sentience. So for now, at least, they wanted the area to stay their safe space. one they could be in without worry of the nightmares from their recent past catching up to them. "No, thank you," Izuku replied. "No need to worry. We've got transportation covered." And with a quick smile shot of Chaco's way, the ship was floating weightlessly out of the dump.